So the next topic is audit sampling. So I told that I'm not covering risk assessment chapter because that is again a lengthy chapter. That's again a very lengthy chapter. But mainly we are covering main topics. But risk assessment brief idea I'll give you maybe at the end. Getting it? Now let's focus on sampling. See, instead of risk assessment, what I'll tell is you can study 3 chapters easily. Sampling, analytical, strategy. All these 3 together, minimum 15 to 20 marks. Minimum. Only risk assessment, if you study, it will have maximum 8 marks. Is it better to study these 3 and secure 20 or 8 studying that? But if both take same time. Risk assessment, internal control, how much amount time it takes. These 3 chapters together takes the same time. Getting it? So be strategical in your preparation. So fine. So sampling, here nothing but we are going to discuss about SA 530. We are actually discussing about SA 530. So what is this audit sampling exactly? Now what is this audit sample exactly? Just 1 minute. Now let's look at how in reality practically the sample works. First, if you understand this, like how exactly the sampling works, you might have seen in the sampling there are various topics called stratification, value weighted selection. You have seen all that, yes or no? And haphazard sampling, random sampling, simple random. What exactly the difference between them? All that we will see this with this practical illustration. This is a sales report given by the MS Excel itself. In the MS Excel itself, the sales report is there. The Excel itself, its own sales report. Now you see here, this is the total which I have calculated. Getting it? Now I'll just, this is the product which the company is actually dealing. And these are the customers who actually purchased. And this is the total value for which customer has bought the goods. Getting it? So in this Excel sheet, we will apply the sampling technique. Getting it? Now I'll copy this entire data. This is the raw data. This is the raw data. I'll copy this entire data onto another one. Another sheet I'll copy. And you see, this is the data and which I'm copying to another sheet. I'll zoom it. And in the column, I'll just remove it. So this is the total sale value and the customer and product. Getting it? Now what is the population value? 1,54,491. Getting it? A dollar or rupiah vitrunga. Just understand the concept. So serial number. How many transactions we have? Not 78. 277 transactions we have. So how many we have here the transactions? 277. Getting it? So what is the total transaction value? 1,54,491. So this is the status. This is a population. Correct? Now here my objective is to select 20 samples. Have you heard of random number tables? All of you? Now, how do I apply random number tables? This is population, filtered population, correct? This is population. I hope here it is visible to everybody. Here also, right? Yes. Now, from this, I apply simple random sampling. Getting it? Now, I want to select invoices. Totally how many invoices I want? 20. What is the invoice number? 1 to 277. 1 to 277 totally. And how many samples I want? 20. So random between 1 to 277. Correct? So 81. That sample we are selecting. Totally how many we want? 20 samples we want. So yes. So these are the samples which I'm going to select for audit. These are the samples which I'm going to select for the audit. 141 voucher, 211 voucher, 136 voucher, 163 voucher. Likewise up to 37. Understood or not? Now, so this voucher value, how much I will apply? This voucher value, how much I will check? So 141 voucher value is how much? 42. Getting it? Likewise, I'll apply. So this is the total vouchers which I have selected. What is the total voucher value which I have selected for sample? 11,614. Have you understood? 211 voucher value 60 rupees, they said. We'll see 211 voucher value 60 rupees or not. Yeah, exactly. Correct, huh? And here 163 voucher values have selected. We'll see 163 voucher value. How much it is? 68. Here also it is 68. Correctly arrived or not? Now you tell me, these vouchers have selected. No, these are the vouchers which have selected numbers. Did I apply any my personal bias? They were randomly selected by using random number tables. What is random number table? Did I use any table book? Earlier we have table book. Now we have Excel sheet. So is there any number that came out of my choice? This is simple random sampling. Able to understand, all of you. Now you see. Now let us apply. So what is the total value? Now what is the percentage of the total value to the total value of the population divided by what is the population total? So approximately it is 8%. Correct? Approximately 7.518%. So this is the sample value which I have selected in simple random selection. Correct? Now I will apply haphazard sampling. I'll apply haphazard sampling. Haphazard sampling means I am selecting randomly, but I am not using random number tables. Now haphazard selection. Have you heard of haphazard selection? Now I want how many samples? 20. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So some last one, okay, 20. This is haphazard selection. Haphazard means what? I don't follow any technique. In haphazard selection, the auditor will not follow any structure technique. On the other hand, he will avoid personal bias. Have you seen this sentence? Is there any personal bias I used here? But randomly I selected. What's the difference between simple random sampling and haphazard? Both are random. But in simple random sampling, numbers also I will not use. I will use random number tables or computer scientifically I'll select. Haphazard I will manually select. Both are random. Which is more scientific? Simple random sampling. Have you heard? Saw no simple random sampling. Now we'll see what are the samples that we filtered. What are the samples that we filtered in haphazard? I will filter to next, So these are the haphazard selections, right? Which I did. This is the sample which I selected in haphazard sampling. Correct? What is the sample which I have selected? 10,265. Now I'll apply. What is this total to population? Now what is the population here? So this is the population, yes or no? So this divided by population. Now it is approximately 6.65%. Correct? Now this is simple random sampling, haphazard sampling. Correct? Everyone? Now, if I go to the again population, I'll apply block sampling. Block sampling means what? Selecting items of contiguous, like continuous items. Getting it? First number. In simple random sampling, first number is what? 141. This is randomly selected, right? I will take 141 as starting point. I will select next 20 items continuously. I will select 141 as starting point. Next 20 items. 141, 142, 143, 144, 145, 146 up to 20 items. I will select all 20 items at a stretch. This is what? Block sampling. Or I may have multiple starting items. Let me select block of 5 samples. Suppose 141 is one block. 141, 142, 143, 144, 145. These invoices I will select. Then what is my next random number? 211. From there again 5 samples I'll select. What is my next number? 136. From there again 5 samples I'll select. What is the next invoice? 210. From there again 5 samples. Like that totally 20 I'll select. This is block sampling. Able to understand. Next, what is systematic sampling? Have you heard of systematic sampling? Interval sampling. Systematic interval. Now, what is the total sampling units in the population? 277. There are totally 277 sampling units were there. From these 277 sampling units, I have to select 20 samples. I have to select how many? 20 samples. 277 divided by 20 is equal to how much? 14. Approximately it will come to 14. So, first item I will select. From there again 14th item I will select. From there 28th item I will select. From there again 42nd item I will select. Next 15th, 6th item I will select. Simply 14th table. So I will select, I will apply that. Those invoice numbers are my sample. This is systematic sampling or interval sampling, where between two invoices the interval is 14. Now if I apply 14 interval and select no entire population, how many samples I will end up with? 20. Understood? So this is systematic sampling. Now the most another thing is stratified random sampling. What is the leftover method? Stratified random sampling. Now you see here, let me apply stratified. Stratified will be selected here, okay? Stratified random sampling. Now you see, if you observe the population, is filter value you've seen? Filter. The value inside the table is visible slightly here. Here it is visible. What is the first number? 12.5. What is the first number? What is the last number? What is the last number? 4,700 approximately. The last number is 4,700 approximately. Correct? Huh? Are these both values similar values or extreme values? Very good. Are they homogeneous or heterogeneous? Heterogeneous means completely different. Now you see, when I see the population, now tell me, now I applied simple random, right? Random number tables I used, right? Can I say in this 4,700 rupees value has been damn sure selected? Can I say that? May or may not. Who knows? It's 277th invoice value. That is some invoice value 4,700. Can I say in the simple random sampling for sure 4,700 is selected? Can I say in haphazard 4,700 is for sure selected? I don't know. I just selected randomly. It may come, may not come. Correct? Huh? It may come or it may not come. Now tell me, when I study this population, when I observe this population, when I interpret this population, I discovered that there is an item which is 12 rupee. There is a sale value which is 100 rupee. There is a sale value which is 300. There is sale value which is 1000, 1500, 2000, 3000, 4000, 4700. Now the company is selling goods at various levels. Correct? To various customers. Now tell me, generally in any company, for selling small quantity and for selling high quantity, the process is same or slightly different? Differs. Correct? Now tell me, if I do not pay attention, if I do not observe this point and simply select 20, I may be ignoring high value items. Or I may be selecting mostly low value items. Can I treat high value items, low value items equally? See, in simple random sampling, I applied random number formula and I selected 20 samples. Any number might come, correct? Which means all invoices were given equal chance or not. In haphazard also all invoices were having chance or not. Correct? But when I studied this population, I discovered high value items. According to me, anything more than 2,500 rupees is high value in this company. In this company, sales more than 2,500 rupees is high value for me. 1,000 to 2,500 is medium value. Less than 1,000, low value. Can I select sample randomly from low value and randomly from medium value and also high value. If I select sample from all the three, can I cover all the parts of the population? Is my sample more representative? In population there are extreme values, in my sample also extremes are there. My sample is more representative. Able to understand? Now let me apply that technique. So I will filter samples having greater than 2500. How many were there? Sorry. 2500. How many came? Only 6 items were there. Big items are only 6. Why should I apply sample? I will select all the 6. Can I? I will select. What happens? What's wrong in this? So I will select all these items. Yes or no? All high value items. Getting it? I will select. You might have seen this. In value weighted selection, auditors focus mainly goes towards high value items. Have you seen that? Getting it? Now, then I will select medium value. Greater than 1000, but less than 2500. Sir, no. Oh my God. Here approximately 37 invoices were there. Between 1000 to 2500 only 37 were there. More than 2500 6 only were there. Totally 43. Small value items are approximately 230. Small value items are approximately 234 items were there. But as a whole, how many samples I want to test? 20 only. Already how many selected? I will select from this another 8. Yes or no? 1, 2. Here I apply again haphazard technique. Yes or no? So how many it is coming like here? How many? 7 I selected. So another number I will select. Randomly. Randomly I selected. What is stratified sampling? Dividing the population into subgroups and selecting sample from each group. That's what I am doing. Yes or no? First I divided the population into 3 parts. Items value more than 25. Items between 1000 and 25. Items less than 1000. From each part I am selecting sample. Randomly. That is called stratification random. Stratified random. Correct? Now, next, what is left over? Small value items we should select, no? So, less than 1000. So, less than 1000, I will select randomly how many? Already 8 plus 6, 14 were selected. Just another 6 items I will select. Yes or no? Just another 6 items I will select. Vandarcha? Yes. So, these 3 I will hide. So, what I have selected ultimately is this. These are the samples which I have selected. Hey, what happened? Did I select it in wrong column? Oh, sorry. Now, totally how many I have selected? 20. Correct? Now, I will filter these 20 into another place. This is what? Stratified. Yes or no? This is what? Stratified. Now, I will see the total. Now, you see in this my stratified sampling, small value items are selected, medium value items are selected, large value items are selected. Yes or no? Now, you see the total. 34,000. Now, you see the formula with the population. With the population if I check. With population if I check. Approximately how much value it gained? 23%. You see, here also I have selected 20 samples only. Haphazard I selected 20 only. Simple random I selected 20 only. But I am selecting with the same 20. I am verifying more value. In which method? Stratified sampling. And I can say confidently, if someone asks me, have you verified material items? I verified. Have you verified medium items? I verified. If I focus only on these two, management may do frauds in low value items. I verified them as well sampling. My sample is more representative. Through this methods, we understood now what is haphazard, what is simple random, what is stratified random, what is interval sampling, what is block sampling. Understood or not? This is called statistical approach. What is non-statistical approach? Non-statistical approach means where I don't use all this scientific methods, probability methods, random methods. I don't apply. My favorite number, let us assume 1. I will select all the vouchers which will have one number. Able to understand? This is personal bias. What is this called as? Personal bias. Bias cannot be avoided. But tell me, whatever method of sample I am using, tell me what is the purpose of sample? What is the purpose of sample? I'll give two options. In order to draw conclusion on the sample, or in order to draw conclusion on the population. Exactly. The objective of sampling is not to select the sample, not to form an opinion on the sample, but to form an opinion on the. Yes, very good. That's it. So now we apply the sampling technique in test of controls. We apply the sampling technique in test of details. Now in the sample selection, is there a risk again? Sampling risk, we call it as. What is it called as? Sampling risk. What is sampling risk? What kind of wrong conclusions that we may end up because of the sampling risk? How to use the sampling technique? How to project the mistakes? All that we have in our syllabus. Are you getting it? So with this we understood scientifically how we apply sampling. Now we just have to look at the book. Just a minute. Yes. So now let's look at how, what are the concepts that we need to discuss. So in the previous exam, they gave a question, something related to this introduction. At the last there is another para which you will find in main book. Getting it? So non-routine checking, routine checking, that is the wordings which they used. So they indirectly asked you about the sampling. What is audit sampling? First of all, we apply our audit procedure. We verify. What do we verify? In a sampling method, we verify entire population or sample. Sample means less than 100% data. That's it. Audit sampling refers to application of verification procedures to less than 100% items within a. So that is called auditor sampling, based on which auditor draws conclusion about the static. Getting it? All of you. Now, just a minute. Now, what is the objective of auditor? The objective of auditor in sampling is to provide a reasonable basis to draw conclusion about the population from which the sample is selected. See, in the population in our example, 277 bills were there totally. Each item is called a sampling unit. Whatever is selected is called a sample. Are you getting the point? Next. This standard applies when the auditor decided to use either statistical or non-statistical sampling. Getting it? And when designing a testing sample, when performing test of controls and test of details, and how to evaluate the results based on sample. The moment you decided to adopt sampling technique, this standard SA 530 applies. SA 530 heading is audit sampling. The chapter heading is also audit sampling. Now, what do you mean by population? Population is nothing but entire set of data from where sample is selected, based upon which auditor will draw conclusions on the population. First, a population must be appropriate. Getting it? Appropriate population it should be. Appropriate means what? Relevant. What is the, from wherever, see what samples you want to select. See what you want to verify. Purchases I want to verify. What is, in order to verify purchases, what is appropriate population? Purchase register, DRN register, purchase order register. These are the appropriate population. Yes or no? Not only that, before you select the sample, you must ensure that the population is complete. If the population is incomplete, your conclusion on that incomplete population from where you drawn the sample will also be wrong. If you want to audit purchases, make sure entire purchases were populated first. From that you have to select. Suppose tell me in our example, out of 277, if 30 bills I removed and then selected sample, the result, will it be reliable? Exactly. And population from where you're drawing sample should be reliable. It should be generated independently. It should be generated by right person. Getting it? What is sampling unit? It is nothing but individual item in each and every individual item in the population. Total of sampling units is equal to population. Are you getting it? Now audit procedures are applied on these units which are selected, and conclusions will be drawn on the populations by using a projection, by using a technique called projection. By using a technique called projection, which is also called as extrapolation. Able to understand? Whatever conclusions we are drawing on sample, that conclusion becomes on the population. You see example of rice cooking. This we say, this quotation also we say. Getting it? So whether the rice has been cooked properly or not, cooked up. We don't check the entire each and every grain. We only check sample. Correct? If the sample is too wet, we say that the rice was not yet cooked up properly. Yes or no? It's not boiled properly. Now, what is the approach to sampling? We have two approaches. One is non-statistical approach, another one statistical. What is statistical approach? Where selection will happen on a random basis, where we use probability theory to evaluate the sample results. What is probability theory to evaluate sample results? Suppose out of 20 samples I have selected, out of 277, if I discover one mistake, it's 5%. It's 5%. 1 by 20 means 5. I naturally feel that in 277 also 5% mistakes were there. This is called probability application. But it is not as straight or as simple as what I told. First, whenever you discover a mistake in sample, first you should assess the nature and characteristics of the mistake. Is it anomaly or is it non-anomaly? You need to first understand that and accordingly apply. Able to understand? Now, sample is chosen by applying some mathematical and statistical methods. I use random tables, no? Yes. What is non-statistical? Which do not have the above features. Ultimately, what is the objective of sample? Selecting representative sample. Tell me, when the sample is representing the population correctly, only then my decision on the sample I can apply on population. Correct? Only if I select sample correctly, which will have all the characteristics of the population. Getting it? Then only my sample is representative. So whatever approach you follow, ultimately the sample selection objective should be representative sample. Correct? And so the sample characteristics must be close, similar to whole population. Although not exactly same, but similarity should be there. Able to understand? Now, sampling process is performed on test of controls to identify deviation from the control. Whereas in details to identify misstatement. The word deviation is used in the context of control. Misstatement is used in the context of details. Remember. Able to understand, all of you. Next. So balance, we will discuss in the next session. The balance continuation and all, we will discuss in the next session. Clear? Hardly another 30 to 40 minutes, we'll close up this chapter. I'll give you a clear-cut idea of how to understand this chapter, then you can go and understand later easily. So, let's continue. So, we are discussing the difference between statistical and non-statistical sampling. The difference is, in statistical sampling, we use the probability theories. We apply mathematical calculations. Especially, the statistical sampling is useful where large number of transactions were there in a given volume of data. So, in that time, the statistical sampling is useful. And in statistical sampling, we don't have any personal bias in selecting the sample. And the evaluation will be absolutely scientific based on the result of the sample. And in case of larger organization, statistical sampling is something which is always recommended. Whereas non-statistical sampling, the sample is selected based on personal bias. See, when I am selecting sample unbiased means what? I am not looking at the item in the population when I am selecting. That's called unbiased selection. Biased selection means what? Where I will be looking at the item in the population and selecting that specifically for some reason. Able to understand? So that is called personal bias. So the degree of objectivity cannot be assured. How far you are independent in selection, that cannot be assured in case of non-statistical sampling. Moreover, in non-statistical sampling, we usually check it, large items, especially which are recorded at close, year end. At the closing time, whatever major transactions were there, that is what we generally check in non-statistical. See, first of all, we don't apply any non-statistical technique. By default, we select samples on random, right? The moment you select it on random basis, it is statistical sampling, simple. Next. And here, the results cannot be measured because they are not scientific, and moreover, in case of non-statistical sampling, the sample selected is not representative. Now they have given one MCQ, one correct or incorrect question in one of the exam. Sample size is not a valid criteria. Sample size is not a valid criteria to distinguish between statistical sampling and non-statistical sampling. This is a statement. The answer is correct. Sample size is not the criteria to differentiate between. Do we see any criteria regarding sample size here? What is the difference between statistical and non-statistical? Is there any discussion on sample size? Whether I select 20 samples out of 277, 25 I select, 30 I select, is there any link with the approach that we follow? Forget about approach. Even within statistical, simple random, stratified random, even there also we are not following based on sample size. Suppose have we seen in simple random 20, in stratified random 15 enough, like that have we seen? Sample size is not at all a criteria to distinguish between methods of sampling, approaches to sampling. Getting it? Sample size is a level. See, you need how much level of assurance? I need more level of assurance. Naturally, I select more number of transactions. Are you getting the point? So sample size will be that much where sampling risk is low. Nothing but where audit risk is low. Whatever sample size you feel sufficient, that's it. In audit evidence, we see sufficient appropriate evidence. Nothing but sample size. That is mainly directed towards sample size. Able to understand? Next. Now, how sampling is different from traditional methods of checking, which is something you can read on your own and understand. Easily you can understand. Getting it? Now, factors to be considered, this I'll come back again. Now, let's look at various methods of sampling. Sample selection and methods of testing under sampling. First of all, you shall select items in such a way that each sampling unit has a chance of selection. So every sampling unit should be given a chance. Every unit in the population should get some chance that it will be selected. This can be achieved only in statistical sampling. The purpose of sampling is to provide a basis for the auditor to draw conclusion about population from where it is selected. And it is important that auditor selects representative sample so that bias is avoided. Now selection methods, we have so many selection methods. Getting it? We have so many selection methods. Simple random sampling means what? Simple random sampling means it's a method where each unit, every item in the population has equal chance of selection. Yes or no? We have seen formula 1 to 271, any 20 items we want. We selected in Excel. Any number can be picked, right? So item number 1, what chances it has? Item number 279, what chances it has? Both are same. Equal chance. Random number tables are simple and easy to use and also provide assurance that bias does not affect. Now we use Excel sheet random number table technique. So is there any bias? Is there any my personal judgment in that number selection? No. This method is considered appropriate where population has a reasonably similar units. Now in our example, there is 12 rupee item, there is 4,700 rupee item. Simple random sampling, though it is fine, but when the variation is too heavy, is it right method? When simple random sampling can be applied when suppose entire population, all the amounts are more or less similar. They were in a particular range bound, not extreme variation. Then I can apply simple random sampling happily. But when the population comes having extreme variations, it is always better to divide the population into subparts and select sample from each subpart. Correct? Huh? So what is stratified? It means dividing heterogeneous, diversified into homogeneous populations. Yes or no? Now in our example, 12 rupees to 4,700 is the total population. We divided that into three categories: high value, middle value, low value. Now within low value, all items are similar. Within medium value, all items are similar. High value, all items are similar. That's what. So splitting heterogeneous population into homogeneous population. Now how can we stratify? In our example, we stratified it based on monetary unit. It is called as monetary unit sampling. We stratified it based on monetary unit. So we call it as monetary unit sampling. Able to understand? Stratified sampling, another name is monetary. Suppose I am doing audit of expenditure. I am doing audit of expenses. Expenses are so many. I will now classify them as three types: factory related expenses, admin related expenses, and sales related expenses. Can I classify like these three? This is also stratification only, but is this monetary unit sampling? Now here I am dividing the population into multiple parts based on the nature of expenditure, not the amount involved. Correct? So the method dividing whole population to be tested into few separate groups is called as strata. Each stratum is treated as if it is a separate population. Items will be selected from each of the stratum. Number of groups into which you have to divide is your professional judgment. We divided it into three parts. I may divide them into 5 parts. I may divide them into 7 parts. That's your choice. It's a matter of professional judgment. Generally, for the top group, 100% items we will verify. Correct? Why? Big items are generally less in items. So even though if you verify 100%, it is okay. Whereas from the lowest group, we verify 2%. Example. In our example also, 234 items were there. 6 items only we verified. Hardly 3% sample we verified from the lowest group. Yes or no? Able to understand? That's about stratified sampling. Now immediately we need to see the techniques of stratification and value weighted selection. So what is stratification? Stratification means what? Dividing population into discrete, means independent subpopulation which have identifying characteristics. We divided the population into 3 parts. Value more than 25. Value between 1000 to 25. Values less than 1000. Each subcategory has an identification. No. What is the identification? More than 25, 1000 to 25, less than 25. That's a side heading. Yes or no? That is called identifying characteristic. And that process of subdividing is called as what? Stratification. Each subpopulation is called as stratum. Units under those are called as strata. That's why it's called stratified random sampling. Now, audit efficiency can be improved if auditor stratifies population by dividing it into subpopulation. Efficiency we can increase. How? When we selected simple random sampling, 20 samples we selected, but the value came only 10,000. But we apply stratified random sampling, same 20 number, but 34,000 rupees worth we verify. Efficiency of audit increased or not? Same 20 we are verifying, but output is coming so much. Able to understand? The objective of stratification is what? To select the sample from all parts of the population having different characteristics. Yes or no, it is proved or not? Next. When performing test of details means what? Actual transactions, sales, purchases, expenses. Often stratification is based on monetary value. How we stratified the sales data now morning? How we stratified in the previous class? Based on monetary value. Able to understand? Now, how projection will apply here? Suppose you divided into subparts, right? From each subpart you selected sample, right? Suppose small items 234 were there. Out of which 6 we have selected. Out of 6 we found one mistake. 1/6 mistake. 1/6 we will apply in total 277 population, or we apply total 234? We need to project to that stratum. Suppose generally sampling, how we apply sampling is, suppose out of 100 one mistake is there. Out of 10,000 how many? This is what projection means. But when we divide this 10,000 into subparts, projection should be made to the total gross population or subpopulations. Subpopulations. So projection should be made for each subpart, and the total projection we should make to population. Understood or not? So the results of audit procedures applied to sample within a stratum can only be projected to the items that makes up that stratum. Able to understand? Every sentence you see how you can correlate. Now, the results of sample from the units drawn from subpopulation are projected to the respective stratum. And finally, in order to draw opinion on the population, auditor need to combine the result of all the stratums to check possible deviation, to check risk of MMS in the whole population. Are you getting it? That's it. So projected misstatement of each stratum will be combined to consider possible effect of misstatement in the actual account balance or the transaction. Nothing but that is the population. Clear? Now, what is value weighted selection? Value weighted selection is the sample size, selection process, evaluation, everything is in monetary amount. Now you see, stratification means it's a technical term. Now in our example, sales data, how is stratified? Based on monetary amount, based on value. Yes or no? Now when we divide the strata, when we divide the population based on value, that's actually called as monetary unit sampling, or the technique is called as value weighted selection. We are giving high weight to which items? Large items or small items? Large items. You see, that's why large items only 6 were there, all the 6 were selected. Yes or no? You see, when performing test of details, it is better to identify sampling unit as monetary unit. The auditor will be more focused for large value items because they can result in smaller sample size. The approach can be used in combination with systematic method as well as random selection. Generally we apply stratified selection. Generally we apply stratified random. Value weighted selection we apply with random selection. We don't go with systematic selection, which is most popular. That's what most efficient when using with which method? Random method. That's it. Getting it? Next. Now there is a discussion on sampling risk. Now, by the way, still we have some other methods. What is systematic selection or interval sampling? We divided 277 divided by 20 sample size is equal to 14 is the interval. What is systematic selection? It's a selection method where sampling units in the population is divided by sample size. Total in our sales report, how many sampling units were there? 277 divided by 20. What is the interval? 14. The starting point may be haphazard. The starting number may be haphazard, but it is more likely random. Okay, if at all we select that number by computerized random number. When using systematic selection, the auditor would need to determine sampling units within the population are not structured in a way that sampling interval corresponds with a particular pattern of the population. So what is the sentence? These kinds of sentences, if at all asked for true or false statements, that's it. You're gone. Now in interval sampling, I am deciding to select every 14th item. Suppose in the company, every 14th expenditure is, let us assume, repairs and maintenance. And when your interval is also 14, you selected 20 samples in expenses. All the 20, what you will get? So your interval should not match with any pattern. Able to understand? The pattern of transaction and the interval should not match. You should take that kind of precaution. Otherwise, see why the reason why you're following systematic selection, because you want to select all the expenditures, all the types. But every 14th transaction is always this one. So automatically what happens? It will become one pattern. Only one set of transactions you are selecting. Are you getting the point? Every 10th sale in this company is to so and so vendor or so and so customer. So you are selecting 10 as interval for sales verification. All invoices that you select for sample will belong to only one customer. Again problem. So that's what. Now you see the sentence. So in systematic selection, auditor would need to determine the sampling units within the population are not structured in a way that sampling interval corresponds with a particular pattern of the population. Understood? Therefore, systematic sampling when chosen as a method would be carefully applied, and you can have more than one starting point. Suppose point number 1, 14, 28, 42, 56. Likewise, I am going again. There again, I will put a random number. From there again, 14 I will count. Are you getting the point? Next, monetary. It is nothing but value weighted selection, where the sampling results, everything is in monetary amounts. Haphazard sampling. This has asked for many times, 4 marks question. Getting a stratified random sampling is also asked many times. Haphazard. Haphazard means what? Auditor select the sample without following any technique. The auditor will avoid bias and predictability. We did have other selection. Do we have any bias? No. But we don't use random number tables. Getting it? This method is not superior when compared with other sampling methods. In this method also, every sampling unit will have a chance of selection, but may not be equal. Because I am selecting manually. So how do I know? How do I run computer button correctly, equally? I can't. But if it is given to computer, it naturally selects equally. Able to understand. That's it. Then we have block sampling. Block sampling, I hope you'll read and understand. Getting it? This is easy method. Next, sampling risk. So what is a sampling risk? So what is sampling risk? So sampling risk means what? Risk of not detecting a material misstatement. This is audit risk actually. Risk of not detecting a material misstatement is in fact not audit risk, in fact detection risk. More clear. All these three are interrelated. Risk of not detecting a material misstatement, that is actually detection risk, because of which audit risk will increase. And why detection risk arises? One of the reasons why detection risk arises is sampling risk. So what do you mean by sampling risk? Risk of selecting an inappropriate sample. What is inappropriate sample? What you are verifying in the sample, the characteristics of the sample are completely different from the characteristics of the population. The characteristics of the sample is completely different from the characteristics of population. When you verify the sample, you get one kind of conclusion. But if at all you verify the population, you will get completely different conclusion. Which means, whatever conclusion I am forming on sample is not matching with population if I verify the population. Example, what are the wrong conclusions that you might get? Getting it? In case of test of controls, what kind of conclusions you will get? In case of test of details, what kind of wrong conclusions you will get? In case of test of controls, risk of over reliance. Another one is risk of under reliance. Risk of over reliance, risk of under reliance. In case of test of details, risk of incorrect acceptance, risk of incorrect rejection. What are they? Risk of over reliance, risk of under reliance in case of controls. In case of details, risk of incorrect acceptance, risk of incorrect rejection. Look, we do verified controls also on sampling basis only. Controls we verify on what basis? Sampling basis. Example of one control is, suppose in this company where I am doing audit, the purchases value more than 5 lakhs. Whenever company want to place a purchase order, where the order value is more than 5 lakhs, this order shall be approved by finance manager and CFO. This order shall be approved by both of them. Only then the order will be entered into the system. Getting the point? Only when this order is entered into the system, we can accept the goods when they are delivered. Suppose if a supplier sent goods to us, in a company, when a supplier sent goods, storekeeper may not have any idea. So when goods came, the other party will tell, sir, your company ordered goods. Storekeeper, what he will do? Okay, sir, accept, and he will give acknowledgement. Naturally, it became purchase, liability. But whether our organization placed order or not, how do we know? So we should tell storekeeper immediately, first, whenever somebody is sending the goods, first receive the goods only when there is an order from our company. Now he need to give acknowledgement of receipt, no? That acknowledgement will not generate without PO, without purchase order. And who is ordering? Not that store person, purchase people, somebody else is ordering. They will order, the data will be entered into the system, and this fellow, when goods received, no. We need to give acknowledgement for goods received, right? When he is entering the goods received, it will ask first question against which PO, which purchase order these goods are received. First you need to map that. Only if we map that, suppose purchase order contain 1000 units, and whereas this fellow sent 1200 units, he cannot accept beyond 1000. He can only give acknowledgement for 1000. Even though he deliver all the 1200, he can give acknowledgement only for 1000. Liability can be booked only for 1000. And this fellow is only giving GRN. Now like this, in the computer, restrictions will be given. This is called control. Now I need to test these controls. How purchases related controls are, I need to test. How do I test the controls? I will take few samples, only check this control. I'll take all the purchases where the order value is more than 5 lakhs. I'll take some 10 purchase bills. Purchase orders more than 10 lakhs or 5 lakhs. I'll cross verify what is the policy. FM, CFO, both should approve. Both are they approved or not, I'll check. This is called test of control. What is this called as? Test of control. Sir, you are actually selecting the invoice and checking. No. Is it not test of transaction? Is it not test of detail? No. This is control checking. I'm only checking that control. Now I felt, yeah, everywhere authorization is perfect. GRN I saw. Yeah, GRN every time whenever they are accepting, PO mapping is done. I saw every controls like this. I tested controls are effective. Then I will take some 100 purchase transactions. Then I will check when the PO was raised, how much quantity, when the GRN was issued, how much quantity, payment slips, and when the voucher was prepared, when the entry was passed in the books, at what value it was passed. This is substantive procedure. What is this? Substantive procedure, test of detail, nothing but the actual transaction testing. Able to understand. In test of detail, the transaction will be tested right from its origin till the end. Whereas in test of control, I will only check that control element. In both the cases, I will check with voucher only. But the objective of verifying is different. Are you getting the point? All of you. Now, in test of controls, when I see the control is working fine, I saw some 10 samples. All the 10 samples purchase, finance manager, CFO, everyone is signing. I felt control is effective, excellent. But actually in reality, whatever samples I selected only, they followed control. In the remaining samples, they didn't follow the rules. In many cases, they didn't follow the rules. Almost 1 in every 3 invoices, they don't follow the rule. 33% deviation is there. But bad luck. Based on the sample I have selected, I felt controls are working very well. Am I believing them or not? Over reliance. Tell me what will happen because of trusting the control too much. I will select lesser sample size for test of details. If controls are effective, I will do less substantive procedure. When I do less substantive procedure, what will happen? The possibility of discovering mistakes will reduce. Now tell me, when the discovery of mistakes reduces, I will not discover mistakes. I will say everything is true and fair, when in fact, so many mistakes are there. Am I giving wrong opinion or not? Audit risk. Understood or not? So that is called risk of over-reliance. Risk of under-reliance. Company transactions are everything perfect. The controls are working absolutely fine. But I randomly selected some 10 vouchers and saw the control. Everywhere it failed. And the fact is, only these 10 vouchers failure is there. Remaining 9,990, they are absolutely fine. But the sample which I selected, based on that only I will go right. The moment I saw out of 10, 5 mistakes, I felt immediately in the population so many mistakes were there. I felt control is not at all working properly. What will I do because of this? I will take bigger sample and I will try to prove so many mistakes, but I will fail ultimately. But because of under-reliance, my audit efficiency is affecting. No. Okay, I may not give wrong opinion. I will do more careful audit, but my efficiency is affecting. No. But because of over-reliance, what will happen? Audit risk will increase. Whereas under-reliance, is there any impact on audit risk? Next, risk of incorrect acceptance. Test of details means what? I will take 100 samples. I verify these 100 samples. I did not find a single mistake in them. Entire GR and PO, everything, 100% vouching I did. Getting it? I verified 100% transaction. Whatever vouchers I selected, I selected in depth. And I did not find a single mistake. Getting the point? I did not find a single mistake. I felt entire population is true and fair. I accepted entire population as true and fair. But in reality, the population is having so many mistakes which are not discovered in the sample. So, am I accepting the entire population of true and fair or not? But which is incorrect. Now, because of this, what happens? Treating that population is free from material misstatements when in fact they exist. Because of this, what happens? Audit risk increases. My opinion may go wrong. Risk of incorrect rejection means what? I am rejecting population saying they are not true and fair. But this rejection is not correct. What will happen because of this? See, the sample I selected found mistakes. I felt entire population is materially misstated. So I said everything is not true and fair. Now because of this, is there an impact on audit risk? No. So, this is sampling risk and wrong conclusions that you might take up. You see, what is sampling risk? The auditor conclusion based on sample is different from population if at all entire population you verified. Selecting inappropriate sample is also called as sampling risk. Like risk of over-reliance, risk of under-reliance, risk of incorrect acceptance, risk of incorrect rejection. Are you clear? Now, detection risk, I told you, the risk of not identifying mistakes. Will this arise only because of the sampling risk? I may even have non-sampling risk. What non-sampling risk? Sample is correct. The way you interpret only wrong. Yes or no? That is called human mistakes. Or you are misinterpreting sample results. Or you are taking wrong information. These kinds of risk, no. Because of this also you are giving wrong opinion. But this risk is coming from not sampling, other than sampling. That is called non-sampling risk. So non-sampling risk is the risk that auditor reaches a wrong conclusion for any reason other than sampling risk. Non-sampling risk can never be measured. Are you getting it? Next. Finally, whatever sample you have selected, whatever sample you have ultimately selected, you need to apply verification procedures. The auditor shall perform audit procedure, whatever is relevant for the purpose. Audit procedure is not applicable to selected item, then he need to perform on a replacement item. What is meant by this? They do ask all these kinds of questions. For this, what I suggest is better read main material here. My main material is there, better read that. We have given examples also clearly. What is replacement item? What is, if replacement is possible, alternative procedure? Unable to apply suitable alternative procedure. All this is little bit bigger discussion, cannot be covered in revision. Verify from the main book, you will understand better after all this. Then we have few more important topics. Now, what are the requirements? Fan on, fan. Yeah. So what SA 530 is requiring? What SA 530 is requiring? First, sample design. How you should have sample design? Which method you should follow? First, understand the purpose of audit procedure and characteristics of the population, and then select the design accordingly. If the characteristics of the population are wide variation, I'll go for stratified sampling. Otherwise, I'll go for simple random sampling. Sample selection. It should happen in an unbiased way. Every item will have a chance of selection. Now, how much sample size you will select? It is that much sufficient to reduce sampling risk to an acceptable low level. The sample size must be such that the sampling risk will be reduced to low level. Sampling risk means the possibility that I may take up wrong conclusions based on sample. That possibility should reduce. If that possibility should reduce means I should check more number of samples. If I take less number of samples, if I discover mistake, I will think in a major items of population also there is a mistake. Very simple. 100 samples I verified. One mistake I found. 5% is the mistake. That's what I conclude on population. I took another 100. Nothing I found. Zero mistake. Now out of 200 till now how many I found? Only one. Now what will I interpret? Only 2.5% error. Able to understand in the population. So as the sample size increases, my prediction over the population will also changes. Able to understand? Now, what factors in examination you may get this question also? What are the factors that you have to consider for sample design? So if they may ask you this also, please read from main material. Don't miss this. Please read from main material. Wherever I told you to read from main material or icai material, please go through that. Now, first of all, can I consider a sampling plan? Can I consider a sampling plan or not? Can I go with sampling or not? It depends upon size of the organization. It depends upon internal control, reliability of books, tolerable error range. In this company, what is the error range possibility? If it is within my toleration level, okay, I can go with the sampling. Suppose if the errors are beyond tolerable limit, better I will not go for sampling. And how much confidence you want? The greater confidence you require, the greater must be the sample size. Same way, we're having another question. What are the factors? What are the factors that affect sample size in case of test of controls? What are the factors that affect sample size in case of test of details? Now here in exam, they'll ask you this question. This kind of question. Very tricky question. Only if you understand entire sampling chapter you can write this. Otherwise you can't. Which of the following is not a factor? Which of the following is not a factor for determining sample size in case of test of details? Option A, risk of material misstatement. Option B, projected misstatement. Option C, expected misstatement. Option D, tolerable misstatement. Which of the following is not a factor for determining sample size in case of test of details? First, you must know meaning for all the four before answering. Getting the point? The answer is projected mistake. And if at all any of you guessed it correctly, don't do festival. Okay, because it can be accidental. Getting it? It can be accidental. What is expected misstatement? What is tolerable misstatement? What is projected misstatement? First you must understand these three. Consciously we should select right answer. Then only you can answer well even for some other question. Getting it? What is tolerable misstatement? It's nothing but performance materiality. Tolerable misstatement means what? It's nothing but performance materiality. Have you seen performance materiality SA 320 definition? Performance materiality means a materiality level set by the auditor at less than overall materiality for financial statements as a whole in order to reduce the probability of undetected misstatements, uncorrected misstatements exceeding the overall materiality. If applicable, performance materiality also means a specific materiality level set for a particular class of transaction or account balance. This is the definition. Not understood, right? So tough the definition was. Getting it? Performance materiality definition is not easy. That is nothing but tolerable misstatement. See, like, I'll give you here glimpse of SA 320. I'll give you here a glimpse of SA 320. Materiality standard. There are two materialities. One is called as planning materiality. Another one is called as performance materiality. This performance materiality in sampling chapter can be correlated as tolerable misstatement. Tolerable misstatement. Planning materiality is also called as overall materiality. Overall materiality. Once you discover a mistake, first you need to interpret the mistake. What mistake it is? What is the mistake nature? You need to interpret the mistake nature. The mistake is of two kinds. Anomaly or non-anomaly. Anomaly, non-anomaly. Anomaly means, there's again a definition. It's a rate of deviation or misstatement that is demonstrably non-representative of population. This is what the definition is. A rate of deviation or a misstatement that is demonstrably non-representative of population. Nothing but anomaly means non-repetitive mistake. What is it called as? Non-repetitive mistake. This is a mistake which is not representative of population. What do you mean by that? This mistake is there only in the sample I have selected. It will not be there in population. Like how? What is that mistake? Example. Suppose an accountant, while entering a transaction of 10 lakhs, by mistake typed 11 lakhs. Sorry, by mistake typed, one extra. Out of hurry, he typed one twice and he entered 5 zeros correctly. Getting the point? Will this mistake happen every time? Will this mistake happen? Suppose a 10 lakhs value is recorded as 1 crore 10 lakhs. 10 lakhs worth of transaction is recorded as 1 crore 10 lakhs. I discovered this mistake. Now can I say every 10 lakh entry in the books of accounts is misstated by 1 crore? This mistake is there only in that sample. This is called anomaly. By the way, have you discovered the mistake? What is the mistake value here? 1 crore. What is the mistake value here? 1 crore. 10 lakhs to be accounted as 10 lakhs, but they accounted as 1 crore 10 lakhs. So how much is the mistake value? 1 crore. Exactly. Now this mistake not yet corrected by the company. This is called uncorrected misstatement. This is called as uncorrected misstatement. Now this is the 1 crore mistake. Now this is anomaly. Now based on this, can I project mistakes in the population? No. Are you clear? Now next, non-anomaly. In the control, the company software, there is a small error. What error is? Whenever goods received note, see like what error they wrote, what program they wrote is, the program what they wrote is, like if purchase order contains 1000 units, maximum GRN can be generated for how much? Maximum you can receive for how much against that order? 1000 only. You ordered 1000 means how many you can receive against that order? Maximum 1000. Now here in GRN, while writing the program, they should write less than or equal to 1000. Able to understand? They ignored that word less than. They used the word equal to. Whenever they are mapping GRN, by default system accepts 1000. Suppose if PO contains 1000, system also accepts 1000. If PO contains 2000, system also accepts 2000. But in reality, how many I am receiving? That system is ignoring. Even if I try to enter 900, system is not accepting. If this kind of error is there in the software, every transaction wherever I am receiving less than ordered quantity, every transaction will be misstated, yes or no? Are you getting the point? Now, can I project this? Yes, I can project. I can use this for projection. Depending upon some mathematical calculations, we can use this for projection because it's a repetitive mistake. What is it called as? Non-anomaly. Non-anomalous projection. We call it as what? Non-anomalous projection. Now tell me, when I say 100 crore might be the mistake in the population, is it corrected or undetected? Is it uncorrected or undetected? Suppose I discovered 1 crore mistake. Based on that, I am estimating 10 crore is the total mistake in the population. Now, 1 crore I discovered, 10 crore I am estimating. This 10 crore is uncorrected or undetected. I have not detected, it's estimated. Are you getting the point? Suppose tell me, when I project the mistake plus when I discover the actual mistake, undetected plus uncorrected. Getting it? I take performance materiality, actual materiality 1 crore. If total mistake crossed 1 crore, it's material misstatement. You have to give modified opinion. If it is 10 times of this, it is pervasive. We have to give adverse opinion. Getting it? Now here 1 crore is the total materiality level, right? And I see here below, I will set some 60 lakhs as performance materiality. 60 lakhs I will set for performance materiality. And triviality materiality, we call it as trivial level. I will keep something called 10,000 rupees. I will tell my team members, if any mistake is less than 10,000, ignore. If it is more than 10,000, reporting differences. What is it called as? Reporting differences. Means we will accumulate all that mistakes whose value is more than 10,000. These are all mistakes we are finding in audit. Now we total it and we take projection. If the projected value exceeds this, no. PM level, if at all it exceeds PM level, no. Definitely there is a chance that actual mistake is more than overall materiality. Able to understand? That's how the concept has been developed. That's how the concept. You can watch my marathon, previous marathon, which I uploaded. In that I clearly spoke about SA 320. Around some half an hour, 40 minutes I uploaded. You can watch that. You'll understand. So tolerable misstatement means how much mistake I can tolerate. If the tolerable misstatement which I discovered is less than performance materiality, it's fine. If at all that uncorrected, undetected misstatement exceed tolerable level, the moment my misstatement which I calculated exceeds a tolerable level, I will have to be very, very careful. I will have to select more samples. Once again, I have to redo the working. Again, it is exceeding tolerable level. I will conclude the entire population is materially misstated. Able to understand? That's it. That's tolerable level. Now, what is risk of MMS? What is expected MMS? What is projected MMS? Very simple. How much samples I should select in purchases? I first verify controls, right? Controls are working fine. When controls are working fine, do I expect any material misstatement? When controls are working fine, will I expect any material misstatement? When controls are not working fine, I expect naturally more mistakes. When I expect more mistakes, I want to discover them. I will increase my sample size. When the risk is high, sample size is high. When my tolerable misstatement is very low, my toleration is very low, I can't tolerate mistakes. Then when I cannot tolerate a single mistake also, my sample size will be high. Okay, so many mistakes, up to this much level I can tolerate, no problem. The tolerance level, if it is very high, sample size will be low. Now, once I selected sample, I applied audit procedure. See, there are so many factors, risk of MMS, expected MMS and tolerable MMS. By considering all these factors, I selected some 100 units as sample size. I verified all of them. I discovered 2 mistakes. One mistake is anomaly, another one is non-anomaly. Based on non-anomaly, now in out of 100, one is, see, it's not out of 100, it's out of 99. Out of 100, one is non-repetitive, ignore it. So out of 99, how many repetitive mistakes you found? 1. Out of 99, 1 means, out of 9,999, how many? Are you getting the point? That mistake which you established as anomaly, excluded from the projection. From the sample, from the projection, both you exclude. Out of 10,000, minus 1 is a non-anomaly. So balance population is 9999. Out of 100 samples, 1 is anomaly, only 99. Out of this you found another one. So how to project? Only you should project for 9999. This is called projection. Projection is the end result of sample verification. It is not the starting point to select sample size. Understood or not? Projection is something which we do after end of sample verification. After verification, now we will project. Now projection is not a, projected MMS is not a basis for sample size. Is projected misstatement basis for selecting 100 or 120 or 150? Is it basis for me? No. Are you getting the point? All of you. I understand. You didn't study all this. And this is what asked in exams. Next. So, what are the factors that influence the sample size in case of controls, in case of details? I clearly explain few points. You read them later. Getting it? All of you. If I have to discuss that, it will take hours. So projection treatment also just I explain. Getting it? In controls, no, projection is not required. If control is deviated 30%, population deviation for controls is how much? 30% only, because it is expressed as a percentage. Whereas in test of details, extrapolation is required. Anomaly means what? What is the treatment of anomaly? How to evaluate sample results? What are the precautions you should take while applying test technique? So first, understand accounting system, internal control system. Identify areas which are not suitable for sampling, first of all, like statutory areas, and planning for sampling methods. All the transaction balances shall be properly classified. Sample size, please determine. Select in unbiased way, and result must be analyzed properly. These are the precautions to be taken whenever you are deciding to apply sampling. Are you clear? I explained you clearly the basics and a medium like commendable idea about the terminology. Now you can study those concepts which are pending, but study only from the beginning, that too from the main material if you want in-depth clarity. Are you clear? That's it. So this is sampling chapter. Then we have analytical procedure, we'll discuss.